How many of you have heard about me before in the media, some way or another? No? Okay, one person. So, how many of you are here because you like the title? One, two. So the rest of you are here because you have to be here. So not quite grabbing life by the balls. So you familiar with the expression grabbing life by the balls, right? What's that? Do you know this expression? Grab life by the balls. What does it mean?
Just do it.
Just do it, yeah. That's right. So we're going to play a little game before we really start. So I came up with this title because I hope that by the end of today's session you understand more about me and my work, but more importantly than that, that you get some inspiration for your own life and really have a good idea what it means to just do it, seize life fully and completely. So we're going to play a little game. You like games? Yeah, just do it. Okay. So this is the game. It's called Name the Ball. Yeah. It's a very simple game. So name the ball, okay? Are you ready? Okay, what ball? Football, good. Yeah, softball, volleyball. Well done! You guys passed my test. Name the ball. Yeah, round of applause. So I'm showing you these balls because I'm actually afraid of these balls. I am. Not looking at them or touching them, but I'm really afraid of fast-moving balls coming towards me, namely, especially these balls. Because I've been hit many times, usually the side of my leg or sometimes the face, by these balls. So I have a fear of balls, and even after all these years, I still have a fear of balls. I mean, literally the balls, these balls. You see there, a ball that I'm supposed to, that actually comes towards me, I'm supposed to run towards. The tennis ball, that's the worst, right? You sign up for tennis lessons, and then you actually have them coming towards you really quickly, and then instead of running towards it, you run away from it all the time, every single time. So you can't actually learn tennis that way. So even after all these years, just terrible with all kinds of ball games. However, I'm hoping that by the end of today, you have some idea of how I was able to grab life by the balls. So I often get asked this question, number one question when I go for a networking event, why did you become a sexologist? If you go for a networking event, people ask you what you do. So the first question I always get is, why did you become a sexologist? And so then I would answer 3 words: to help people. And then say, what do you mean help people? Surely you can help people in many ways. Why sex? Right? So then I answer with another 3 words. Because I got angry. I did. I got angry. So it was at a time when I was deciding what I wanted to do with my life, and there was a lot of articles in the media around that time while I was at the cross junctions. I was still redeciding what I wanted to do with my life, and came up. I saw many articles in the papers. Within that's my friend. Within days of who's late? His name is Hong Jin. How are you?
25.
Yeah, he's 25, he's around your age. He's one of my best friends. I hope. So yes, why sexology? So I got angry. I saw all these articles in the media within days of each other. One of them talking about increased teenage pregnancy. Another one talking about increased STI rates in Singapore. And it got me thinking, why do we never talk about sex in positive ways? Why do we always hear about sex in negative ways, about STI, HIV, get pregnant, not get pregnant, teenage pregnancy? We don't hear about sex in positive ways. So it started me getting on this anger thing and made me start to think, if there's no one talking about sex in positive ways, maybe I could. But where would I go and get the training? So this actually got me thinking much more. Even saying the words "I got angry" really triggers a reaction in people. And at first I wasn't comfortable with even using the words "I got angry", so I used the words like, I got sick of sex being talked about in negative ways. I got sick of it. But actually it still didn't resonate as much as I got angry. I really got angry. I got so angry that I couldn't sleep. And then I started to go online to find out where can I go and get the credentials, because credentials mean a lot in Singapore, so I can't just shout from the rooftop about positive messages about sex. I actually had to have credentials. So this got me on this new path. But obviously, when I tell people I got angry, I decided to do something about it. It still wasn't good enough for some people, so then they try to ask me more. So then, if I have more time, if it's not just a networking event where it's just hi-bye, you know, those kind of things, I'm sure you will experience this later on in your career, where you go to a networking event and there are some of these people who do that. Somebody did that to me last night. Oh, yeah, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a sexologist. Oh, wow, interesting. So what made you become a sexologist? Well, to help people. Oh, yeah, but why? Oh, yeah, because I got angry and I'm sick of, tired of sex being talked about in negative ways. Oh, okay. Oh, very interesting. And then they just walk off. So with those people, I don't really have that kind of in-depth conversation. But if I do meet somebody who genuinely wants to know, this is when I tell them my full story. And today I'm going to tell you my full story, not because I'm some kind of egomaniac who just wants to keep going on about myself, but actually there is a point in why I'm sharing with you my story, and hoping that you get something out of this and be able to draw some inspiration, apply it to your own life. So these are my credentials. So I have a doctorate in human sexuality, certificates in counseling, coaching, sex therapy, and I knew when I embarked on this doctorate that it wasn't enough, because it's an academic study of human sexuality. It wasn't a clinical doctorate, and so I went and got other qualifications in it. So I graduated from Ngee Ann Poly in 1996. So I was 20. That's me, of course. So I look back at this picture, I see a woman, young lady, who is trying really hard to dress in a way that's acceptable, demure, and tilting her head, trying to look, pretty, and basically deep down I was still very insecure even when I was at that age. So I graduated with this diploma, and at that time it was the most sought after diploma in Singapore, and I really got in by sheer chance. So with my first 5 subjects, I barely made it into their minimum criteria for this diploma, but with my So the 5 subjects I can get into I can meet the criteria of this prestigious diploma, but with 6 subjects I could only get into the worst JC in Singapore at that time. So I did the first 3 months in a JC, and then I didn't get any word from this poly, so I went to another JC. I enrolled, I got my uniform, everything, my textbooks. I really hated being in a JC, being the lowest ranking JC. And then I get a call from Ngee Ann Poly and say, hey, do you want to come in and sit for our written test, because we have some last minute vacancies. So I think 2 weeks before school started, I went for the test and to help them develop their program. I did the collaterals, I helped them with publicity, and I became one of the trainers. Then as I did more and more of this volunteer work, my actual work, which is corporate communications, doing PR, marketing, advertising, started to become less and less and less attractive. I spent a lot of my time thinking about my volunteer work, and so gradually I decided to do something to help young people like who are in the midst of trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives. So I, together with some people, I founded and started to run this non-profit called Youth Employment Singapore. So it took 1 year to actually plan it and recruit volunteers, come up with the constitution, figure out how we're going to get funding, things like that, and then register it. So it actually took 1 year to prepare and 2 years to run it, and then at the end of 2 years, what happened was we ran out of funding, and I started to get really burnt out. Because I quit my job to run this non-profit. There was money, I quit my job to run it, and maybe moving away from the corporate world, the 9-to-5 job, having a regular income, running a non-profit, having all this funding coming in, it becomes much more real, because when you work for someone, you have all this like mountain of resources behind you, but when you work for yourself, you run this small little lean operation, you realize how little it takes for one person to make change. And I was managing 40 volunteers, and we were running programs, including the prisons. And after a while, when funding ran out, and the toll of managing all these volunteers who would sometimes play me out, that I have to end up picking up the slack. After a while, I just got really, really tired of picking up the slack. And at the end of this, I began to ask myself, surely there must be a better way, right, to survive. There must be a better way to make money. There must be a better way to do good. When you run a non-profit, a lot of people want to do good, but a lot of people don't actually do it. So I started to, so we decided collectively as a group to wind down the non-profit, and so I went back to the drawing board. So I basically have had 2 career switches so far. The first one is being in corporate communications for 8 years, having my bachelor in mass comm, and then when I was running the non-profit, I got my master's in public policy, thinking I'm going to do international NGO work, policy, but then realizing that I don't actually want to be behind the desk. I actually want to work with people, because when I was running youth employment, I actually was doing all the back-end work, getting all my volunteers to go up and do all the actual work presentation on stage. I was doing the back-end work. And then I started to ask myself, when YES closed down, I started to ask myself, why did I do that? I say I want to do good. I set up an organization, we are doing good, but I'm not doing the work. I'm getting my volunteers to do the work. The ones who were playing me out, the ones who were saying they will show up and then don't show up, and then they don't show up, I go and get somebody else, but I'm not actually the one on stage. So I began to realize that actually it was my fear of public speaking. So so when push came to shove, and we were closing down YES, I had to figure out what I want to do with my life. So this was the second time in my life where I was faced with thinking of what I want to do. So I begin to just sit down and dream. What would I do if I was not afraid? What do I really, really want to do? Yeah, so Martha, you said you want to do corp comms. It's very easy for you. You're good in English. Okay, you start doing corp comms. And then you say you are disillusioned with corporate sector. You start your non-profit. Then you do your non-profit. And then you get burnt out with your non-profit. So what exactly do you want to do? So I started to dream. I started to dream like, okay, what would I do if I was not afraid? And this was when all the publicity with the negative sex messaging came in. I got angry, I got really angry, and I said, if I could do anything in the world, I would actually talk about sex all the time. So that started as a little seed, as a little dream. What would I do? Then I looked at myself and said, okay, do I have the money to go and get another degree? Do I have the skills, experience, abilities? Yeah, I knew I wanted to move into the helping profession. I wanted to stay in the helping profession. I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. But do I have the skills? So I had to be realistic about it. So at that time, you have to realize I already have my master's. I was 28. And I say I want to help people, but did I have helping skills? So at that time, I didn't have. I had a certificate in counseling, which is not enough. So I could take another 3 years and take a degree in counseling and become a social worker and earn 1,500 in the family service centers. I wasn't going to do that. This would be my third career. I wasn't going to do that. So I wanted to specialize, I wanted to focus, and I wanted to have the flexibility to start my own practice. So I also asked myself questions like, okay, if I went and paid all this money to be a sexologist, will there be enough people who will come and use my services? Will I actually have enough business? Actually, this was something that I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I would actually make enough money to survive. I didn't know. But I was definitely thinking about it. And then the next thing I started to ask myself is it worth it? Is it worth it for me to, having had 2 degrees, go and pursue another one, become a sexologist, knowing that it was very strategic, knowing that I would be the first one, knowing that there was nobody else, but knowing that this was something that I was passionate about, sex. So when I went for this doctorate, I thought, oh, okay, it should be easy. I've always been very interested about sex. But then I went and realized that actually how much I didn't know. So this is me in my first talk at boutique. So after I got my doctorate, and I realized that I'm not good at public speaking, and I do public speaking because my desire to help people is more than my fear. Does it make sense? That every time I go up there, I tell myself that people don't really care who you are. People don't really care how many degrees you have. They care about what you can do to help them. So when I focus on that, it gets a little bit better each time. So just to share with you some of the challenges I faced as a sexologist, how I felt grabbed life by the balls, having had a few career switches, having had the lowest moment of my life. As a sexologist, when you introduce yourself, you get bombarded by a million questions. Some of them by people who don't really want to hear the answers. They don't. They start pounding me with 20 over questions at the same time. How am I going to answer? Which one am I going to answer? When I answer one, you're not really listening, you're already answering the next few already. Which one do I listen to, and how comprehensively do you want me to answer? So I get people, like yesterday there was this person emailed me in caps. Please call me in caps. Who are you? Who are you? Are you trying to sell me something? Do you have a problem? What's it like emailing me in caps? Or people just message me on Facebook, like one sentence. I have a sex problem. You know. So you get bombarded by all these things, and I'm, as you may know by now, I'm actually an introvert. So for somebody who's an introvert, having to face all this all the time, sometimes I get really overwhelmed. Of course, I face all these jokes, people who make fun of me. I run this workshop, the hand job, blow job workshop. And every so often the guys would say, oh, yeah, do you want a model? It's really funny for them. But it's not so funny when you've heard it like 30 times. I get the cold shoulder when I go to networking events. It has happened. I give my card to a woman and then she doesn't even talk to me. She just walks over to the other side of the room. Doesn't want to talk to me because I'm a sexologist. I've had sexual harassment. Nowadays, I don't pick up the phone if it's an unlisted call. It might be a guy, and usually it has been a guy trying to get some attention. It's very, very weird, right? And it doesn't happen when a guy calls from an unlisted number and says, I want to learn the better techniques to masturbate. Guys don't call and ask such questions. Imagine getting 3 in one day. So when I first started my practice, it was very disheartening for me, having spent all this money and time to get all this education with all sincerity to come back and help people, and then I get guys calling and saying, I want to book you for 2 hours. Why 2 hours? You don't need 2 hours. After 1 hour of talking about it, I think your mind will be really exhausted. And say, no, we need time to warm up. No, I'm not a prostitute. I'm not a sex worker. I'm not going to do any hands-on on you. Or people calling, we make the appointment. He sounds very legitimate, and then he almost at the end of the call asking, oh, so what oil do you use? Thinking that I'm going to give him a rub. So as I had more and more publicity, as more word went out about what's a sexologist, what I do, basically private coaching, no touch, no nudity, I got less and less of this harassment, but it still happens. So please don't call me from an unlisted number. It has happened. I don't have much money, but I try to advertise. There was once I tried to advertise in this publication. I was really have an affinity for their cause, and they in the advertisement they say, be our corporate sponsor, we'll put you in the annual listing, blah blah blah. It sounded really good. I thought, okay, it's a stretch, but I really want to support this publication. I sent them the money by PayPal, and then they emailed me to say that I have to remove the word sexuality from my corporate description. So I said, what is Eros coaching without not a moron? You know you should leave your job, okay? So what gets you excited to get up in the morning? What makes you angry? What makes you nervous? Doing public speaking makes me nervous. But I have done 80 hand job workshops, 50 blow job workshops. I can do it with my eyes closed now, you know. So I'm very, very natural, okay, if you come for my workshops. What would you do if you are not afraid? If fear was not holding you back, what would you do? So I'm saying all this not because I'm trying to recruit you to be a sexologist. I'm saying that all this because I want you to decide for yourself what you're passionate about. And I'd rather have a country, a nation of people who are enthusiastic and passionate about what they do. Because when you're happy, when you're passionate, when you have joy in your life, you look forward to going to work. This is when the best work happens. This is when you can transform and make a difference. So, are you living your life for you? Not for your parents, not for money, for you, what makes you happy? So these are just some questions that I want to encourage you guys to think about. I know I heard from normally that what you guys are studying, and I think it's fantastic that you have all these options. You can do double degrees now, you can do fast track and all these things. So great, I love studying, but beyond studying, how are you going to apply it? So this is my favorite quote, and this quote actually saved my life, because if I hadn't read this quote, I wouldn't have known how to get out of that. Because at that time I was thinking of whether I should get a divorce with my husband, knowing that things are not going to change. It was already bad if I continued in the marriage, it would have gotten worse because he was, you know, he just doesn't grab life by the balls. He just doesn't do things. He just doesn't make things happen. And it's very, very difficult when he's also the one trying to stop you from growing. So with that, I thank you, encourage you, go out there, play ball.